Ladies and gents, and everything in between, this is part 2 of crushing the Caro-Kann. What you see here is the iconic position after e4, c6, d4, d5. So black played c6 to play d5. And if we take now, they can take back, and this is called the exchange variation. White can also advance their e-pawn. It's called the advance variation. Don't pin me down on this. But let me remove those from the tree. We will be playing knight c3. This is the classical variation, defending the pawn. Black takes and we take back. And now black most often plays bishop f5, and this is the main line. We discussed this in part 1, how to deal with that move. Today we will go into another move that's fairly common, and that's knight f6. In this case, we just take the knight and they have to take back with the e-pawn, because if they take back with the g-pawn, the whole pawn structure is in ruins. And now we can see that black is going to castle kingside because their queen side is fairly exposed already. So we play c3, creating this pawn chain, and we can create this early attack on their king side, knowing that their king will be there. This is fairly annoying for black. We will start asking questions very early in the game. Bishop d6 cannot go anywhere else. We play bishop d3 and they castle, and we complete this battery of the queen and the bishop attacking this pawn. They will play, before they defend this pawn, they often play this in-between move, check with the rook on e8, and we can simply block this check with the knight to e2, and we want to go there with the knight anyways, because bishop f3 is kind of a dead end for the knight, because it cannot go any further because of this pawn on f6. So whether they play this move or not to check you, it's recommended to go to e2 with the knight regardless. So now black has to deal with the threat on h7 because it's attacked twice, and there are 3 ways of dealing with this for black. 2 of them are moving the pawn out of harm's way to either h6 or to h7, and the third way, which I see fairly often in lower rated games or in blitz or bullet games, is they play g6, kind of blocking our attack. However, this is a bad move, and I call this variation the king's tomb, because it's just very dangerous for their king. It is generally not recommended to build this fianchetto structure and not bring your bishop to g7. And if the bishop is already out on a stroll somewhere else, you can assume that this is a mistake. This is also a hook, so it's easy for us to attack it and potentially sacrificing our bishop on g6. So the only thing here you should be thinking about as white is h4, h5. It's the only thing you should be thinking about. Just punish this mistake. Don't go developing castling queenside. g6 is a mistake, and we have to play h4, h5 and nothing else. So h4, h5. They might attempt us from stopping here by playing h5 themselves. However, this is a big mistake, because now this invites us to make this bishop sacrifice. Now, this is just the sacrifice that you have to do. Many chess players, at lower ratings, they sacrifice their pieces too quickly without further calculating if it's really leading to something good, if it will have compensation for the lost material. These players will make the right move here by sacrificing their bishop. It's a no-brainer, and if they go to the corner, we just pick up another pawn, and yeah, we can basically castle, bring the rook. If they take the hanging knight here, we can simply fork them. Queen h5 check. So if they go here, of course we just throw in our bishop and chase their king to almost the center of the board to e6. This is just not the right place for a king to be after 16 moves. So you don't have to learn this exactly or memorize, but I'm just showing you that black cannot play h5 here because we will sacrifice this bishop. So they have to play something else which allows us to play h5. And again, if they don't do anything against this threat, for example, knight d7, we can just take, and after they take back, we can sacrifice a bishop again. And now it's even more deadly because we have this open rook file, and this will actually lead to mate. So therefore, black has to do something against this triple attack on g6. And that's what I meant earlier on, that this is going to be a hook. It is very easy for us to attack it with pieces, whereas if it would have remained on g7, it's much more difficult. So f5, blocking this attack, we can just take, because it's always good to open our rook file, especially when their king is on this side. And after they take back, we can just throw in our bishop to h6, very annoying square, of course. And they play, for example, knight d7, developing their last minor piece. And now we can see that this pawn is kind of pinned, because if it moves, we can sacrifice the bishop again on g6. So we can add pressure to the pinned piece, g4, pp to the pp. And if they take, we can sacrifice this bishop and do that whole thing again. So they cannot take. They might play bishop d5, attacking this rook. And in this case, we can just replace the rook with the other rook by castling queenside. So takes, and yeah, we're down the exchange now, but the rook that we lost was not doing anything, whereas our bishops are very powerful and active. So I would say it's a very good trade, and the engine absolutely agrees with me. Queen to f6, we can simply continue our attack, take the pawn, and I think, yeah, they have to drop back their knight to defend this pawn, and after we take, they take back with the knight, and we can just throw in our final pawn on the king side with f4, potentially f5. They cannot really take because they have this attack still lurking. For example, it goes like this, and our knight is hanging, so I suggest just moving it out of danger. Of course, you could take, but it's not good to just trade a bunch of pieces when you're attacking, and when you're down a rook, you're down the exchange. So if you here just start trading a bunch of pieces, then you will just get closer to an endgame, which means that this rook will become more valuable, much more valuable. And I think this is actually losing for white. So don't take the knight here, just keep it alive. So to summarize this whole thing, black should not play g6 in this position to defend the h7 pawn, because we will just dismantle their whole king side piece by piece by throwing pawns forwards, potentially sacrificing our bishop. Black, however, can also play h5, for example. In this case, I recommend castling queenside, because they have this pawn already pretty close to our king side. If we choose to castle king side, which is it's not bad. It's just going to be annoying after queen c7. We have to play h3, and then they will play h4, and they'll have this eternal dominance on the dark squares close to our king. And yeah, it's difficult to survive that, and it requires a lot of preparation and skill. So it's easier to just castle queenside, and you don't have this problem with h5, h4 potentially. So bishop e3, and no matter what black plays here, for example, bishop e6, we just castle queenside and play c4 in the next move, because yeah, c4 is a multi-purpose move. It takes away bishop d5, and it also kind of neutralizes b5, because after b5 we can play c5, and we kind of lock the pawns in front of our king, which is generally a safe thing to do. So yeah, king b1, and like I said, after b5 we can play c5, and our king is really safe. So that's what I recommend after h5. Just develop your dark squared bishop and castle queenside and play c4, king b1, potentially c5. Don't play c5 for no reason, because you do create this backwards pawn. If they can just drop back their bishop safely to c7, they haven't played b5. There's no reason for us to play c5 and create this backwards pawn. Okay, so the third response by black is h6, and unlike h5, I recommend castling kingside in this position. So we develop our final minor piece, bishop e3, and no matter what black plays here, for example knight d7, we just castle kingside. Or if they play bishop e6, we just castle kingside. The only time we don't castle kingside, we castle queenside, is actually if they throw in their bishop to g4, attacking this knight. We can just kick it with h3, and after they take and we take, and they play bishop d7, for example, I recommend castling queenside. It's actually safer to castle queenside because we are the only one with a light squared bishop. So king b1 follows soon, and we can start attacking their kingside potentially with both our rooks combined, and maybe even rerouting our queen to sacrifice it on h6. So this is the only time I recommend to castle queenside after h6 has been played, is after they play very early on, they play bishop to g4, and they somehow decide to trade their light squared bishop for our knight. But any other case, just castle kingside. Now black often decides to build this queen bishop battery, actually the exact same thing as we did, and we also respond by moving the h pawn one spot forwards, h3, and they do this dance with their knight a lot, where they attempting to go to e6 with their knight through f8, and because they have this battery, it's often very good to undermine it with c4, c5. However, you don't always play c5. You only play c5 when it actually kicks their bishop backwards into a more passive square. But for example, now when they play knight e6, this move is kind of pointless because they created a safe square here on f4 for their bishop to go. So now if you play c5, they can just go here, and we have created this backward pawn for no good reason, without the compensation of creating a passive bishop. So in this case, I recommend not playing c5. Always think it through very thoroughly when you decide to commit a pawn like that. So just centralize a rook. I recommend centralizing the a rook to d1 instead of rook f e1. And after they throw in their bishop to f4, that was the whole idea of rerouting this knight. We can just take it with the bishop, and you will probably think that taking with the knight is better because this will keep our bishop pair until we can take their bishop pair as well. So we both lost the bishop pair. This could be used as an argument to take with the knight, but it will just lead to a trading of a bunch of pieces and to a more neutral position, a more equal position. So instead, in this case, I recommend taking with the bishop, giving up our bishop pair, and then don't take back with the knight. Just kick their bishop, c5, there it is, kick it into a very passive square. And after which we can activate our knight and make it very, very lively on f4. Very active square for the knight. And as you can see, this pawn is under attack and it's only defended by the knight. So it's very tempting for black here to play g5, kicking away the defender. However, this doesn't work because we have this trick where we can play bishop c4, pinning this pawn to the king, enabling the move queen g6 check. It's a very deadly sequence that will follow, and they will, of course, most of the time they will see that this will happen. Just to show you why it works, after they take, we come in with the queen and we pick up this pawn and go back. So we have the same position as a couple of moves before, but without this pawn. And then we take this pawn with the bishop, threatening mate. And they have this desperate move, desperado, bishop f5, where we could just take it with the queen, of course. And they might try some other things, rook g8, but we have this. This is, by the way, a check because we picked up this pawn before, remember? That's why we did it. And this is just mate for white. So that's why, just showing you, that's why we can sacrifice this knight here and play bishop c4. Very good move for white. So that's what you do after g5. However, remember in this position when we kicked the bishop backwards, in case they go to f8 and then we have this thing and then they play g5, then this move doesn't work, because after they take the knight, they can just block the check with their bishop, whereas before they moved back to e7 with the bishop. This is of course not possible, but now it's possible. So now you just basically straight up sacrifice the poor old horse for no good reason. So you have to explain the stable master why you did that, and he will not be pleased, or she. So they might also play bishop e6, by the way, which is very interesting move for us, because after we centralize the other rook, we can actually sacrifice it, trade our rook for the bishop, because it will lure away their f7 pawn, and this opens up the square on g6 for all our pieces. So we can check the king, and if they go to the corner, we can check with the knight, and they have to take the bishop, and they walk straight into this discovery check, and we can simply pick up their queen. So in this position, they should not go to h8 with their king. Instead, they should go to f7. And now it's of course very tempting to fly in the queen to g6 with a check. However, their king will just walk to safety. So I recommend cutting off this path with rook back to the other rook now to e1. And if their king goes for a run, we can just take the pawn with our knight. So now they are very scared of this move, of course, so they will try to block it, but we can just reroute our queen through e2, h5, and there's not much black can do against it. So for example, they play g5 and we check, and they have to go to the center with their king. And now don't take with the rook, because again the king will just run away. So take with the bishop. That's not a, it might be a religious horse, but it's not a bishop. Take with the knight because it blocks their king from going to d8. So now they have to give up their queen. And yeah, good luck from here. It is winning for white. It's not extremely winning, so good luck. I'm not going to explain until you have a checkmate on move 46, of course, because this is a video on the opening and not on the end game. But those are just things, weapons you can think about, that, you know, whenever they have this bishop on e6, very often they do, and you have this mighty old knight on f4, you can consider sacrificing the rook, taking away their f-pawn, opening up this g6 square for basically all your pieces. Okay, those are just things you can consider. And this whole thing happened, by the way, because black often does this dance with their knight, and just to take care of this square. And that's why this square is so relevant in this position, and that's why knight e2 is so good, because you have an extra piece eyeing this square. Anyhow, that sums it up basically. So after h6 we develop our final piece and we castle kingside, and that's the whole difference with h5 instead of h6. Then we castle queenside. It just makes it easier for us to play like this. Yeah, so h6, develop the bishop, castle kingside, and h3 if you have to defend it, and c4 undermining this, trying to play c5 undermining this battery. Don't play c5 if they can just move their bishop forward. Only play c5 when they have to move the bishop backwards. Then centralize the a rook to d1, and yeah, take with the bishop. If they throw in their knight, take with the bishop, not with the knight, take it with the bishop, and then kick their bishop into passivity, and, you know, take it from there. Take it from there, potentially bringing in the other rook and sacrificing it. And sometimes when they don't go all the way back with the bishop, they go to e7. Oh, they go to e7. And they attempt to kick your knight with g5. You have this spin and this queen attack. Yeah, that sums it up. You can practice all these variations on the website inchested.com. The link is in the description. There's just you can browse through this whole opening, and you can add lines if you want, very, very easily, and you can rename branches to your liking, and yeah, you can, like I said, you can practice it. So boom, 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 and if you play a wrong move, you'll get a very kind reminder that this was not part of the opening. So good luck crushing, have fun, don't lose against Caro players, and also do other things than chess.